Hello everyone. So the other day I had a bit of um, a viral moment, some might say, on LinkedIn. Not really. I got a couple hundred likes, which is more than I ever get. But I have had a few people ask me for autographs in the street since. But um, it did bring up a few interesting talking points. So um, the the topic of the post was in relation to this new Power Automate trigger that I found. So when someone reacts to a message in chat. Um, and I was using the joke of if someone used the eggplant emoji, then I'd send an email directly to HR, um, because what kind of weirdos reacting to that to me? But yeah, there was a couple conversation points in the comments below in relation to what this actually could be used for. So some examples were creating bugs and tracking those against projects. If you had, say, a group chat with a client or whatever that might be, you could react to certain messages, and that would then automatically generate a new bug or a user story in Azure DevOps, for example. It could also be used for task tracking. So if you wanted to, in a group chat or a channel, have it such that every time you reacted in a specific way to a message that created a Microsoft To Do, for example, then again, that would be certainly possible. But I did have an interesting comment from a couple of people, notably Phil. I can't remember his last name, and he might not want to be included in the video, so I'll just name him as Phil. Um, who thought it would be a good idea for internal communications when they're reacted to, if they could generate a a knowledge base article, or they could trigger a Copilot agent or a prompt of some kind to flesh out that knowledge base article and then be used within a chatbot within the company. So I thought that was a really cool idea. So I've produced a very, very quick and dirty demonstration of this. Um, by no means is it production ready. I am getting a few inconsistent results at the minute, but I am also using SharePoint lists as my knowledge base, which isn't always the best, but you could use anything for your knowledge sources, really. You could plug it into AI Foundry and have sort of a whole enterprise ready AI search mechanism on top of this. But I'm just going to use a nice simple demo for the purposes of today. So really simple. Created a SharePoint site with a list called Knowledge Base, and I've got a title, a summary, and steps to follow with some technologies. And this is going to be kind of the data source for that. I've then obviously got a Teams chat here. So I've just created a demo post, so how to access the leave request system. I've got a prompt, so if this wants to load for me, um, give that a second to load. All this will do is the it will infer the information that we get from the Teams post and create a high level knowledge article. So I've given it a bit of context, the fact that I'm a Microsoft 365 consultancy firm, what sort of tone and language I want the answers to be in, um, and sort of the format of the data that I'm going to be providing it, such as what information I'm going to be giving it. And I also want it to let me know, should I feel that there's not enough information, respond with error, not enough information. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. So if we went back to my solution, so I've got a very basic solution at the moment, which has got an agent, my prompt, and a Cloudflow, so Power Automate. So if we go in here, look at the Power Automate that I've got. As I mentioned, very, very basic stuff at the moment. My internet actually wants to load. Um, I've also got it open here, so I don't know what I'm waiting around for. But basically, you can see here, if I went in to edit this, then you've got the trigger when someone reacts to a message, and I've got it as a book emoji at the minute. Channels is just loading there. You then need to retrieve the message details, because off the back of uh, this trigger, all you really receive is a little bit of information regarding who the person was and the message ID. So you need to get the message details by passing in the message ID and the specific channel. I then trigger off this prompt with the subject and the content that I get from the message details. I pass the JSON response that I get, because in my um, in my model, I've requested that it gives me a JSON response, and then off the back of this, then I say real simple condition to say if it does not contain not enough information, then create the item in the SharePoint list. Now, you can already see how this can be extended in many ways, but I'm thinking at a bare minimum, you probably want an approval process, potentially two approval processes before triggering off this to save yourself potential um, a large number of AI credits because anyone could potentially trigger this flow. But you'd want an approval process before this to say, okay, it's been triggered. Do you actually want a knowledge base article off the back of this? And then potentially another approval process off the back of the prompt just to sort of validate things. What we can also do to extend this is potentially say, if there isn't enough information, then that could be the trigger for a Copilot agent to message the person who wrote the original post and say, hey, need some more information, please provide this to me via a Teams message, and then I'll go off, take that information and create it as a post. So again, going to do a demo now. Things are probably all going to break, but if I click on that book for this specific Teams post, then what this should do is then trigger off the flow. Sometimes takes a second in the background. Um, I'm not sure why I'm getting this lovely error that Power Automate likes to provide us every now and then. I'll just go back into the solution and see what it gives me instead. So you can see now 29 seconds ago that flow is triggered. Had a bunch of failures because it was giving me inconsistent JSON results, so I really simplified the schema. So within here now, we should see essentially what I was showing you before with the successful run history. It's going to get the message details. It's then going to create that prompt, which is going to give me a text output or a JSON output rather. I can then pass that response and create the item in the SharePoint list. So again, this is very, very basic stuff, but I'm hoping that this will give you an idea about how this could be extended. I've obviously not put any checks and balances in place to see if there's any articles that already match this, but you can see that I've done it before. And then I created a real simple Copilot agent. Now, one thing to be aware of is I have had some inconsistent results with this at the moment. I think that's partly down to it being SharePoint lists as a knowledge base. And also, I've literally just used the base setup for this Copilot agent with one single topic of knowledge base, basically. And I've asked for generative answers and for it to only use this this knowledge source. So if I just put in leave request here, hopefully it will work because we love a demo that works. And this should then load up information. Of course, it didn't work. So if we refresh this now, this is what I mean by I've had a couple of inconsistent results with using SharePoint as my knowledge base. But I think, as I mentioned, it's just because my topic is just set up in a very inconsistent way. But if I just searched in leave request, put this in, takes a little second, but he says it should then retrieve information relating to that knowledge base article that I've just created. So there you go, how to submit a leave request or access the leave request app. It gives me the citation that it's used. So obviously it's used the information that has been created in the SharePoint list. So this is just the JSON response that is returned from the list. I believe using SharePoint list is a relatively new feature. That's probably why I'm getting inconsistent results. But this gives you a high level overview of how you could be working this. This could be extended in any number of ways, really. And it doesn't need to have that AI integration, right? It could just be a simple task tracking application, or it could be any number of things. One thing that is useful about the trigger is that at the moment you can only have it triggered from sort of selected channels and messages, or Teams chats rather. However, you can have it trigger from um, multiple channels within a specific team or multiple group chats as an array. But if you wanted to set this up sort of company wide, what you might want to do is have all of your business logic in what's called a child flow, and then have multiple flows that are triggering off based off of the different things. But you've got a couple of options. First reaction only. I'm not really sure what a use case for that might be. Multiple, you can have it so that only certain people can trigger it, such as yourself or everyone. And then obviously you've got those selection or the options as to whether it's a channel or a group chat. But yeah, I thought I'd just throw that together real quick, very quick and dirty, as you can see. Can't really be bothered to edit the video, but I'm hoping that this has provided you with some real world use cases, and sort of got you interested as to how you might be able to use this. Because at first I thought it was a pretty useless connector, but it seems as though the power of the internet has a much larger brain than I. So yeah, potentially this is something that we might use internally. If you've made it through 11 minutes of me waffling, I appreciate it. And yeah, have a great one. I'll see you soon. Bye.